Today on the show, we've got Michael Goldberg. He is the author of the Talent Transformer blog. He's also the Senior Director of Global TA Ops and Sourcing at US Renal Care.
The way we do our process here is we come with facts. We come with what's proven, right? And you come armed to the table to explain that why. You got to be able to explain the why so that they understand it.
So what's top of mind? What's going down in 2026 from your perspective?
From my perspective is retention. What if you could change that by enhancing the experience of being welcomed into the organization? If you properly onboard someone in the first 3 months, it increases the likelihood of them staying between 3 and 5 years.
Hey, RecOps friends, are you still losing hours every week to interview scheduling chaos? What if you could eliminate the back and forth, cut scheduling time by 90%, and actually get those recruiter hours back on the hiring desk where they belong? That's exactly why teams are turning to Rooster, the native interview scheduling platform built inside Workday Recruiting that finally makes interview logistics fast, seamless, and predictable. With Rooster, you connect directly to your Workday system. No extra tools, no disconnected workflows, and instantly let candidates self-schedule with one-click booking links. It handles time zone and language differences automatically, sends branded confirmations and reminders via SMS, email, or WhatsApp, and keeps interviewers, coordinators, and candidates in sync without constant manual follow-ups. And it's not just about speed. Rooster helps you see the true cost of scheduling inefficiencies with its TAS metric, so ops teams can track and improve the parts of the process that slow you down the most. Whether your team hires locally, globally, or somewhere in between, Rooster cuts errors, saves 10 plus recruiter hours per week, and creates a candidate experience that reflects the quality of your brand. If you're ready to stop chasing calendars and start hiring with confidence, visit rooster.us and schedule a demo today. Your recruiters will thank you. Now, on with the show. Today on the show, we've got Michael Goldberg. He is the author of the Talent Transformer blog, which you may have read. He's also the Senior Director of Global TA Ops and Sourcing at US Renal Care. He's a regular on the conference circuit, somebody who's been around and has amazing ideas, and I'm excited to chat with him today. What's up, Mike?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, I'm stoked. Where are you based? What are you working on?
Dallas, Texas, and where it was 80 degrees yesterday, but today it's like 45. But anyway, I am working on quite a bit of stuff. I'm working on creating some of my own usable docs through the wonderful, amazing technology of AI. We can talk about that. Also just wrapped up bringing over and unifying processes. So we had consistent processes across the company to ensure that we're doing things the same. We had just brought in a sister company and we're helping them and getting them acclimated to the new processes. So just tons going on. Of course, you got to get your metrics, a year look back, a quarter look back, December look back. So I've been working on that. We had a fall incentive that we rolled out and around our new hire adoption, which was they killed it and slayed it. Yeah, it's just so much going on over the last 8 months, and it hadn't stopped. It's not going to. And this year's going to be even more interesting.
100%. You're off to a banger of a start, it sounds. One piece that's always interesting when it comes to talent tools and operations is mergers and acquisitions, consolidations of teams, bringing in different processes, disparate systems. How do you think about that as a RecOps leader?
That's a great question. As a RecOps leader, you really need to think about who's going to be affected. Right? Who are the stakeholders? And I think a lot of people just say, yep, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this. But we take it from the standpoint of, all right, let's look at the stakeholders. Who's going to be involved as a result of these changes? Obviously, it's the hiring managers. Obviously, it's the recruiters. It's somewhat, but the goal is to think about, all right, what's going to change? Who's going to have the least minimal business impact when we make those changes? So we had to look at our Renal Care, which was so much larger than the sister company. And so when we brought those things over, we really started thinking about who's going to be affected and the amount of the process and the amount of change that needed to take place. We had all of that. Then you start thinking about what specifically needs to change and what's similar already. We found 2 areas of the process. The requisition request process was a difference, and the way we make offers was a difference. And so the opening and seriously the end of the recruiting process, you had to think about, right, what it was going to take, how were we going to communicate it? So there's all these different pieces, but I would say the most important piece of advice if you're doing any kind of change management this year is really to look at the stakeholders that are going to be affected the most.
Yeah.
And so we adjusted our training, our change management, all to be aligned so that come 1/1/26, everybody was ready to go.
Yeah, that's so important. It not getting the cart in front of the horse. I think a lot of the times through M&A activity, TA teams move super fast. Recruiters are eager to provide white glove service. They get a fresh new headcount plan. They're looking at that Excel doc and looking at the number of hires they're going to make that quarter and the estimated time to fill goals and benchmarks, and they want to sprint. Sometimes it's faster to slow down. What do they say? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
They do. Well, slow is thinking, fast can trip you up. I don't know if it's that smooth. I don't know what the formal saying is, but that's it. We tend to go to this fast thinking, all right, and boom. The other thing a lot of people do is they tend to wait. So we had started talking about this 4 or 5 months ago, right? So we knew what was sitting in front of us. And yeah, we had some time and yeah, we put our feet up for a little bit. But once we got to that like 3.5 month mark, it was go. Because we also had to make system changes within our wonderful applicant tracking system.
Yeah, it's interesting when I think about the consolidation of processes because we're not just changing the tools or the interview loop or the templates for raising a rec and getting a requisition requested or getting an offer out. We're asking our stakeholders, the hiring managers, to change their behaviors when they join our organization. So how do you explain the why? How do you explain the importance of that when they're like, actually, I need this position in seat so we can hit our business goals in Q2? So how do you temper that expectation in Q1 and explain to your hiring managers why things are changing and why it's important?
I think before you even, to me, that's the number one question before you even start the whole darn thing. What's the why? Because when we have to go to our executive stakeholders and explain the why, we focus on the benefits, not on recruiting, but it's going to benefit the hiring manager. It's going to help. I look at it in two ways. The why is, what are the risks if we do it? And what are the risks if we don't do it? And if that can help me get to my why, then we're good. But generally, the why starts with the stakeholders, and then they also start with the processes and what it's going to take and how it's going to be beneficial to them. It's like all these people, all these LinkedIn messages we get, hey, we've got as a company, we can help you even though you don't understand what my need is. And that's the same kind of philosophy that we take into it. And when I had my own business, I was all about that at first. It was like, how can I help you? What can I do? No, it's, hey, let me throw some stats at you. What if we were able to take a unified process and help reduce the time it takes to find nurses in rural areas? Or the way we do our process here is we come with facts. We come with what's proven, right? And you come armed to the table to explain that why and to understand the why. Because when you start to bring your committee of people together, you got to be able to explain the why so that they understand it. And that's your first test case scenario. Because if they don't understand what you're saying is the why, then you got to really hit pause and go back to that team and say, what do you think are the advantages?
Now, we're starting the year strong. What are some of the thoughts that you've had? What are some of the concepts you've been writing about? I know your blog is super popular. People love the stuff you say. Man, like you've got a way with words. So what's top of mind? What's going down in 2026 from your perspective?
From my perspective, and I've written a couple of articles about it, is retention. You look at healthcare, high turnover. You look at retail, high turnover. But what if you could change that by enhancing the experience of being welcomed into the organization and being onboarded the right way in an organization? And there's been a stat out there for a long time, but I still think it's true that if you properly onboard someone in the first 3 months, it increases the likelihood of them staying another between 3 and 5 years. So some of the things that we've looked at is what our retention was for certain positions. And a lot of the healthcare groups, they already do this. But what we have done is we've expanded it to create what we call our new hire experience, our red carpet experience. And I know, right? So simple thing. You would think when you walk into a clinic, it's your first day, but you don't have the same scrubs as everybody else has on related to your position, right? Different colors for different types of positions in healthcare, personnel, right? What if on the first day there wasn't a real red carpet and there weren't banners and streamers and picture taking, and anytime anybody started, you were made to feel like you were on the red carpet headed to the Academy Awards?
Mike, how do you think recruiters can think differently about values, motivators, career trajectory in high burnout roles, such as healthcare?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what they do is it's not only on the hiring managers, but it's also on the recruiters to have not such like a script, but to understand the why people come to work for this organization. And they share their stories with these candidates. And a lot of the candidates that we get do have a story related to some type of kidney disease. So you share your story, or we share our stories with our candidates. They share their stories, and those stories tend to come up in the interviews as well. And so when there's a connection to renal disease, we know we have a fighting chance to get them because they want to see the lives of their loved ones extended. So it makes it meaningful, makes it more meaningful. So to me, that's definitely one of the ways that when we're talking to candidates that we bring them in, we know that we can, and as long as we onboard them correctly, the retention's going to be there.
That's great. Retention, it's so interesting because when we think about the motivation of workers, it changes over time. Recruiters, when we talk to candidates, we index on the art and the science. Yes, it's a balance of both. But I think in the conversation, particularly around the science of recruiting, we don't index enough on the candidate motivations specifically. And I love that you highlighted that personal connection as something that you see success in with post-hire outcomes. Now, when I think about the initial candidate to employee journey, that moment of the life cycle handoff is onboarding. Talk a little bit more about the role of onboarding and retention.
Absolutely. So when you look at onboarding, you want to find ways to make that new hire feel like they're coming in an organization that really cares about them and is going to ensure their success. Now, if I was in front of an audience and asked them to raise their hands, I would assume that maybe 25% of the crowd would raise their hands. So just some quick examples, if I may. We send out things like scrubs, water bottles, t-shirts, coats. So when it gets cold in the clinic, right, we're starting to build out things around training and make the training better, because our nurses and our patient care technicians by law have to go through a certain number of weeks of training. So we want to make sure their experience in learning as they become part of the organization and how we do things, right, and how we focus on patient care. And then not only do they do this computer learning, they then go out onto the floor with a preceptor, and that preceptor, right, watches what they do. Now, is it for everybody? No, our industry, dialysis is not for everybody. It's pretty rough. So the key is having these touch points by our clinical managers once a week for the first 90 days. They check in with that new hire. And it's not just, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm okay. Do you need anything? No, I'm good. No, they're meaningful conversations. They're sitting in the office or they're on the floor, and it's just the two, it's the manager and the new hire, and they're having a conversation about what's going well, where they need help, what's frustrating, right? That means a lot in a high turnover industry like healthcare. You got to have that network, if you will, and we help create that network for the new hire to ensure their success.
Yeah, I love that. And when you talk in your blog about this idea of workforce resilience and the fact that we have a workforce resilience crisis, how do you think recruiting teams can help impact that? Because a lot of what we're talking about here is post-hire outcomes. Right. Recruiting, they've met their end of the SLA. We filled the pipeline, we drove the conversion, we got the hire. Recruiting is under a tremendous amount of pressure through classical scapegoating. So let's talk about the workforce resilient crisis and how recruiters can maybe get a step ahead by taking that extra leap and being involved in post-hire outcomes.
Let's talk about it, Glenn. Let's not just focus on healthcare. Okay, let's focus on all industries. I have this belief that until you receive your first paycheck, that I need to stay in touch with you. And I've had that at other organizations where our recruiters were actually involved in follow-up through the first paycheck, and then at around day 45. Day 45, think about it. You know where the restroom is, you know where the cafeteria is, unless you're working from home, right? You got those two down. You know where your boss's office is or certain departments are. But there still might be this feeling of I'm not getting enough work, or I haven't spoken to my manager in 2 weeks, or I've got this coworker of mine who just talks and chews loudly all day, right? So I see as part of talent acquisition's responsibilities is to check in at around day 45. And it doesn't have to be this long conversation. It could be 5 minutes. Hey, and the most important question recruiters can ask, Brendan, are you doing the job that you signed up to do? How many people have fallen into that trap where they show up and the job is not what they expected it to be? So they end up leaving pretty quickly. And I think that's pretty super important for recruiters to check in on. Because then if not, they can go have conversations with HR and bring them together, see what's going on. I just think it's so important for HR and TA to have that relationship. But really, recruiting should have strong partnerships with their generalists and with their learning and development team, comp team as well. I think those are three key areas because that's where we end up focusing the most. Nothing against benefits or anybody else in the arena, but those are the three key areas that we partner with and that I've always partnered with throughout my career.
Mike, you've talked about talent acquisition being clear that talent acquisition doesn't own the quit, but does own the conditions that make quitting more likely. Where do you think TA should have a hard ownership line?
TA, to me, and I've always had these two steady and fast rules. Right? First, through the first paycheck, we should be checking in to make sure they've got everything they need. They got their first paycheck. Everything is golden. Then at about the 45-day mark, that's where I find it super important. First, most important question is saying, hey, is the job that you signed up for the job that you're doing today? And that's $1 million question, right? Most of the time people say, yeah, it is. But there's some that say no. And that's where you tend to want to partner with folks from HR, comp, learning and development, depending upon the area that they mention. So while we don't own it, we want to make sure that our candidates that we've worked so very hard to recruit into the organization are happy. And if they're not happy, then bringing that to the attention of a generalist and partnering with them to figure out what's going on.
Now, when you think about the role of recruiting operations, how do you think RecOps folks can get more involved in this hiring manager calibration because it's so foundational to retention?
So we are working with our HRS team to ensure, and our learning and development team, right? Because they own pieces of it as well. We own the hiring talent piece, and learning and development owns that. Once they've crossed over the threshold, they're in that learning because they have to go through required training, right? So the first can be between 2 weeks and 8 weeks. So basically, our learning and team has to get together, and so has to get and ensure that these things like the weekly check-ins are taking place. How frequently are they taking place? What's being discussed? 30, 90, and 180 degree feedback. I know a lot of companies do this because they want to understand it. So where RecOps gets involved is we start looking at that data to start telling the story about where we fall short or where we're excelling. And we share that data with the executive leadership team and then share it with our partners because then it gives them ideas to say, all right, this is where we need to make tweaks. The other thing that we do is obviously we work to build dashboards. And that's one of the things that I'm working on is learning to kind of build my own dashboards through the use of AI tools, using Lovable a lot. I've been able to put together a performance scorecard. I'm working right now on a form that we can use that when we're looking at different technologies and tools, we build an app that pretty much helps us figure out if this is the particular set of technology or the tools that we need and what they can offer and how they can integrate. We tend to pretty much bring that all together to see how that matches up, and then we can compare different tools. So I think if the next question is AI, is that part of why AI is taking our jobs? No, it might take away some of the software developer jobs. But what it does, a tool like Lovable actually makes me more educated, more dangerous, because now I don't have to go to a software developer. I can do it myself.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
What are some of the areas in the candidate journey that you think recruiting teams could build and not necessarily need to buy?
Look, you could even build your own applicant tracking system. Now, is it going to be as robust as some of the big guns out there? No. But if you're like a small organization, you can build applicant tracking systems. You could build CRMs, right? You could, I don't know if you could build your own like video interview studio, but I'm sure there's some type of some type of AI software that eventually will allow you to do that. But it's not just using the one tool. You have to use these other tools like Gemini, I think it's 3.2, or Claude 4.5, right? There's a great tool out there called LM Arena. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
So pretty cool, right? It compares, you give it a prompt, and then it says, here you go. You got some choices. You don't have to pay for it because you're giving feedback on which one did better. So LM Arena is collecting that data, and that helps their AI and their results get better in what they deliver in terms of comparisons. So it's not just one tool. It's not a one size fits all. It's many, I would say 3 tools at the most to what you're going to what you're going to have to get. I don't know why I'm geeking out so much about it, but I just am. And I'm going to keep building some tools. I'm not going to build an ATS for my organization. Number one, we're too big, right? We're enterprise level, right? So you still need a lot of those fancy bells and whistles that the ATS, but other things, dashboards, to build dashboards out. All you got to do is have the data. You pull your data from your ATSs or your CRMs, you feed it into the app that you built, and now you have that proverbial seat at the table. Because
I love that. How else do you think RecOps leaders can earn a seat at the table in 2026?
the biggest way, in my opinion, is a rule that I've always had, and I think a lot of people in recruiting, we all say we want to learn the business, but you really got to get in there and learn the business. You got to go walk on a factory floor, spend a day on the factory floor, right? Ride with the truck driver, take it, see what it takes, right? Go into a clinic, go into a hospital, and learn the stresses of the job, the great parts of the job. And to me, a good RecOps leader, and obviously everybody else on the TA team, should be involved in understanding the business from A to Z. And the only way to do that is to speak their language and to, for lack of a better word, operationalize it. So if you want to think like an operator, just start asking a lot of questions. And who do you ask? You ask operations, you ask finance, you ask product managers, you ask IT leaders, and speak to those folks and the more you learn and you pick up on the vernacular, the more going to go, all right, he gets it, she gets it. And I think that's super important. And to me, that's what I encourage people, whether you're a recruiter, recruiting leader, or in RecOps, that you make yourself available and get out there. See the things that are happening, because doing it from behind a desk or at your house, not seeing the day-to-day stuff that happens out there, that doesn't get you to the table. So I would say most important thing, get up, get on a plane, drive, whatever you got to do, and go be in the business to understand the business. Spend a few days out there. Don't just spend 4 hours out there. Spend the day. Get it to meet the people. Talk to the people. This is your chance to have conversations with everybody, especially maybe some people you've even recruited with or you recruited to the organization. Sit down and speak with them. Find out how things are going. What else can we be doing better? There's so many questions that you can do. And I think the key is really asking just lots of questions to understand as much as you can about the business.
I love the index on being business savvy, but also being highly empathetic. If TA teams were measured on like a 90 or 180 day retention window, how do you think behaviors would change? You've talked so much about traditional TA metrics being part of the problem.
So to me, that's where it gets it gets tricky, right? Because it's that time I need to be focusing on my positions, but I also want to make sure that the person, if I got them to 3 months, I want to get them to 6 months, and then I want to get them to a year. And to me, when you're measuring turnover, you should be looking at 30, 90, 180, and 365. So to get in between day 90 and 180, I think it's just an email, a check-in, wishing them a happy birthday, wishing them a happy 5-month anniversary or a happy 6-month anniversary, picking up the phone. I do know though that in most organizations I work for, recruiters would continue the relationship. If they really had a great relationship and really enjoyed the onboarding experience with the new hire, they kept in touch with them regardless. Now, we don't go beyond the 180-day, and that's coming from a different group, but the 180-day survey does go out. But from the recruiter standpoint, I just think it's picking up a call or texting just to check in once in a while. Don't be annoying. Just reach out and say, hey, how you doing? What's going on? How's the job? And I guarantee you they will either pick up that phone and call you right away if they can, or they'll call you within 24 hours if there's a problem. And that again is when you go to your leaders or your partners, your HR partners, or whatever the issue is, to say, hey, we might have an issue here. We don't want to lose that person. We want to keep this person. They're great. So
these check-ins sound so basic. Why do you think they still slip through the cracks, or regrettable attrition feels like a surprise? And then all of a sudden, recruiting and RecOps is on their heels.
I'm going to give you a direct answer. Laziness. It's simple things, right? You just said it. How long does it take to dictate a text? How long does it take to pick up the phone and call someone and spend 5 minutes with them? Is it really going to affect your time and how many people you're sourcing that day, or how many people you're supposed to be talking to that day? No. What if you did it at the end of the day? What if you did it in the first thing of the day? Just calendar some time to follow up with your new hires through the first year. And like I said, once a quarter, twice a quarter, just check-ins, whatever you want to do, whatever's easiest for you. And say, hey, if you don't, but make sure that you say, hey, if you don't mind, I just want to keep these check-ins going. Are you okay with that? Some may go, you know what, I'm good. If an issue arises, I'll give you a call. All right, I'm going to hold you to it. And then at their year anniversary, whether they wanted it or not, you're going to call them and you're going to say, we're so glad you're still here with us a year later. You're doing an amazing job and we appreciate all your contributions. It's free.
Now, what advice do you have? What advice do you have for recruiting operations folks to up-level in their career?
I think folks can up-level their careers by grasping some of the tools that we talked about today using AI, by really rolling up their sleeves and getting in there, understanding the business. And honestly, it's just asking questions and diving in. Don't wait for someone to say, can you do this? Just start doing it. And more you start uncovering, and think of it, it's that proverbial onion theory, right? Just layer by layer. You don't have to go all the way down to the core. Just go for the low-hanging fruit first, and then you can start to, and the more wins you have on those low-hanging fruit, the better off you are and the more welcomed you are into the world of the table, if you will, because you understand the business and you've discovered some things that maybe the company didn't realize.
Love that. Now, Michael, you've been an industry speaker for years. Where will you be next? How can people stay in touch with you and the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. So first, I'm on LinkedIn. You can also connect with me. My phone number, my email is on LinkedIn. So feel free. Schedule some time with me. Let's talk turkey. Happy to help you. Happy to give free advice. Next speaking gig is TA week in early February. So about 3 weeks away. Brian Fink and I will be co-presenting the afternoon keynote on day one on the no business. The NO, not KNOW. The no business.
Heck yeah. Can't wait to see you in sunny San Diego. Mike,
Yeah,
thanks
I'll
so
be
much
great.
for coming on the show.
Thanks very much.